Hey y'all, hey, my name is Sherrod, but you may know me better as Deep Black. Welcome back to another episode of Dive, a show about design. I thought it would be fun to take you into the studio with me today as I practice. That's what today's all about. So I'm teaching an upcoming class at the Hermitage Museum and Gardens here in Norfolk, Virginia. And by the time you watch this, the class will be ongoing, so make sure you follow me on Instagram to keep up with all of our happenings. It's a lot of fun. For the very first class, I always do a skill check with my students. So I have them make the two fundamental forms in ceramics. They are a cylinder, which is just a vessel, usually with straight sides, and it has very specifically, when you cut it open, a 90-degree corner at the base. Now a bowl is the other fundamental form, and it is simply a vessel that has a continuous curve from top to bottom. So cylinder, bowl. I feel like Beyonce. Maybe that needs to be my thing. That's what we're going to work on today. I have my students throw their very best cylinder, very best bowl, then we cut them open, critique them together. This is our first critique, and then we do it again, and again, and again, and again. That's the very first class. That's all we do. All the classes I teach, that is our very first, just getting warm, getting comfortable, seeing where everyone is. I really greatly advocate for intentional practice. That's what I call it. It's simply practice with a goal. Don't practice to make things. Don't ever do that. Don't practice to keep it. Don't practice to have something new and fun. If you're going to practice and then let all of that go. Cut the form open, in our case, dispose of it, what have you. But when you practice and then finish and get up, that's it. That's the end. There is no more to be done. Working with this sense of detachment really frees you to make mistakes, try new things, dig into the techniques and skills that much more, because you know it's going to go away at the end of it. It's very freeing. All right, enough woo-woo. Not enough woo-woo. So the other thing, if you've been around here any length of time, you'll know that I'm always burning incense in my studio. And that is the very first thing I do before I do anything else, resembling work. The incense helps me to ground and focus and just feel present in the moment. I think you should try to find something like that in your practice, whether it's scent, incense, whether it's music. I also blast music up in here in my studio all day long. Find something that will help ground you and help you to focus in. In tech, we call it the flow state. Find that. Find a way to do that in a reproducible manner. You'll be much better off for it. Okay, now we're done with the woo-woo. Let's look at some throwing, right? All right, so what's my intention with this session of practice? So first of all, I'm just gonna focus on cylinders and bowls. I'm not making anything else, and they're not gonna be fancy. Just a straight up and down cylinder and a regular bowl. Furthermore, I'm gonna start with 1.5 pounds of clay. Now, I've had a lot of students tell me they've never thrown with anything more than 1 pound. I think if you're used to, say, 1/2 pound or 1 pound, kick it up a little bit to start with. It'll kind of warm you up that much faster. Then, once we're finished with those bowls and cylinders at 1.5 pounds, we're gonna cut them open, look at them, talk about them with the specific intention of figuring out what we can do better the next time. Then, after we're done with 1.5, we're gonna kick it up to 3 pounds. We'll do the same thing again, cutting open, talk about it. Then we'll kick it up again to 6 pounds. I'm quite rusty, so this will really be a challenge. And at the end of the day, that's really all practice is. It's just challenging yourself to be better than you were before you sat down at the wheel, right? 1.5 pounds, let's get started. I've had a lot of students say they've never weighed their clay before. When you weigh your clay and practice, especially with the same amount, that eliminates one issue from the equation. You know it's not the weight throwing you off, right? So try getting the habit of weighing out a specific amount of clay when you work with multiples or when you practice. It'll make a big difference. So first thing I'm going to do is center as usual. I always advocate for coning, always. I'm going to open my base, compress a little bit, and then we're going to start our pulls. So there's our first pull, looking pretty decent. You know, it's always important to keep yourself a volcano shape as you pull. That one kind of, but it's practice, right? That's the whole point of this. So we're going to keep pulling, we're going to get the water out, then we're going to go to finishing. Now I see a lot of students do not know how to finish. I start with a wooden rib, and then I switch to a metal one to really clean it up. Even though it's just for practice, I want it to be the best it can possibly be. Cut it off, clean it up, take it away. All right, so I'm not going to make you watch all my throwing. So here's the first one. It's okay. Not the best, not the worst. So ideally, when you're throwing a cylinder, it should be the same thickness from top, middle, bottom, and across the base. As you can see here, it is a little narrower at the top, a little thicker at the bottom. Not the end of the world, but not what I'm looking for. Let's cut open the second one. Same thing, more or less the same thing to be expected. You know, we've kind of got a wedge going here. This is all about detachment, letting go. Once you've done a few, you've critiqued them, you know what you have to do the next time. All that's left is just get back and do it again. I'm not gonna show you all four, but I cut them all open. They all look pretty much the same. A little thicker on the bottom than they are at the rim, so I know what I have to work on. So now, like I said, we're gonna kick it up to 3 pounds. So same thing as before, we're gonna cone a couple of times just to make sure it's really nice and smooth and even all the way, top to bottom, inside and out. 3 times on this one, in fact. Then I'm going to make my base, open it up, check it, make sure it's all good. It is. I'm going to compress it. And you see me volcano it in there. I didn't do that the first time around. So this time, we're going to pull, and I find it's helpful to pull in towards your eye. That's how you can get a nice conical shape. There's our second pull, air bubbles all up and through. And then our next pull, and then one more pull. What I'm trying to do with all these pulls is feel. I'm trying to feel the thickness of the wall as I touch my hands to the base. So I'm going to clean it up, again, trying to get it nice and straight. I know it's practice, but you're trying to beat yourself. You're really trying to do your best work. So there's no reason not to really give in to the process. So here you see me take the metal rib to clean it up, and I was trying to see, you know, are the walls perfectly straight? They weren't, so I'm going to keep working on it until I'm satisfied. Now, time for the bowl. Again, as always, we're going to cone. It looks so fun in this like fast motion. We're going to cone it a few times. If only it was this easy and this fast. Cone it again. You see there was like a weird air pocket in there, but that's all right. We can work that out as we go. There's no reason to stop necessarily. So as always, we're going to check our base, and then we're going to open it up. Now remember, a bowl is a continuous curve, top to bottom to top again. So I'm going to put that in at this point, and then I'm just going to start pulling. And as I pull, I'm going to pull into the shape I want. Now I can say, as watching this back, I wish I had gotten a little bit more of a shoulder at the bottom of it, but you know, it's not the end of the world. You can trim that in if need be. So I'm going to keep pulling until I feel like the walls are the right thickness and just what I'm looking for. I want to make sure that I've moved the majority of that clay from the bottom to the top. I'm going to clean it up inside and out, and then it's ready to cut off and then look at. I thought it'd be helpful to have a top-down view of this as well, so you can see my hands from a different perspective. So cylinder again, this one is actually a little too narrow. You can see it as it starts to take shape. My hand is a little too big for this, and it's not quite coming together like I want. Again, this is 3 pounds, but I very quickly get it together and then move on. It's good not to dwell on those things. Just do it again, which I am. So here, now we're gonna do it again, and we're gonna make our bowl. Same as before, taking out air bubbles as we go, making sure it's nice and clean and shapely in all the ways we want. So here they are, our 2 cylinders. They're, as you can see, one of them is much narrower than the other. However, we're getting better. This is what practice is for, right? You can see it's pretty even now. It's getting much more even, just a little bit of a bulge near the middle. And now for that second cylinder, also pretty good, pretty good. 9 out of 10, I would say. I was really feeling my zhuzh on this one. But you can see it's damn near perfectly even, top to bottom, base to rim. It looks really good. Just a little more attention on the rim next time, I think. So the bowls, again, bowls are kind of my thing, so I wasn't too worried about it, but it's always good to challenge yourself. And that's what you want to see in a bowl. A bowl is always trimmed, so there's always going to be a wedge of clay at that base. You saw that little triangle of clay, that will always be there. And that'll give you a little space to put a foot ring, add a little bit more of a shoulder. You do need that weight to support the width, especially as you go wider and wider. So these bowls, I'm quite happy with. All right, now we kick it up to 6 pounds. As I've said, 6 is not my max, but it's a challenging size to work with. I would say if you're used to 3, 4 pounds, if that's your max, double it to 6. That's how I taught myself to throw big. I would just double the amount I was working with, and if I failed, I would back it off by a couple of pounds or a pound. So, as always, we're gonna center it. And with this amount of clay, you really wanna take your time coning and centering and getting it feeling good. So this is, I believe the second cone here. And then we're gonna flatten it out, make our base, open it up. I realized You couldn't really see my hand from this side. So in just a second here, I'm gonna switch the camera. Here you are. We're a couple of pulls in. In my classes, I teach something that I call sensate focus. It's the ability to feel through very specific parts of your body. I'm trying to focus and feel through my fingertips. How thick is the clay at the base of this pot is what I want to know. Am I moving the clay up? As I make that pull and I bring my fingers higher and higher, what does that middle part of the vessel feel like? What does it feel like at the top? How thick is it? Where do I need to move clay? Where do I need to focus? Where do I not need to focus? Where do I need to, let the clay be? That is what I'm doing as I'm pulling. That is what sensate focus is all about. And you only get that through practice, intentional, deep practice. So as soon as I'm happy, we start cleaning up first with the wooden rib. I like to do it. And then we go back in with the metal rib to get it beautifully clean. And you can see as I work up and down sometimes. There's no wrong way to do this. All right, let's take a look at her. I really liked how straight the walls are. I think it looks nice and even. This looks like something I could turn into something sellable, Not bad at all. Oh, 10s across, honey. Love it. This is what we love to see. Now you will notice that there is a slight bit more clay at the base than there is at the top. That's actually intentional here, and that's one of the reasons I took so many pulls to make sure I had a little bit more down there. I find with very tall vessels, and this one is almost a foot tall, I find that very tall vessels tend to buckle and collapse on themselves if there's not enough clay at the base to support the weight of the top half, just like a bowl really. So that's why for very tall things, you leave just a tiny bit more than you normally would. You can either trim it out or not. I think it's very much needed though. And that's it. That's basically my first class that I teach, and every course that I teach is practice. So now you know how I do it. I'd love to hear in the comments, how do you like to practice? Do you practice often? Do you not enjoy it? What are some of your tips and techniques that you like to use to get yourself in the groove? Let me know. All right, y'all, I gotta come up with a better outro for this, but that's it for today. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Dive. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all them things, and follow me on Instagram. All right, I'm going. Bye.